First of all, welcome all of you to one of our first virtual community transition events that we're hosting here from Sheltering Arms Institute. My name is Allison Clark, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Sheltering Arms Institute. I want to thank you all for joining us and just want to give you a quick overview of the purpose of these community transition events. And we really want to continue to provide resources and patient education information related to brain injury recovery. So our goal is to continue to support our patients and families and caregivers in their healing and recovery after discharge from Sheltering Arms Institute. So each of these sessions will have a clinical education presentation, as well as an update from a community partner and who will share information on programs and services that can continue to support you after your discharge from the hospital. So in the future sessions, we want to have them here on site in our conference room. And due to the COVID restrictions, we had to change these meetings to virtual meetings, which is what we're starting with today. So I really appreciate you all bearing with the COVID times and logging in with us to get this education session. So today's topic is enhancing resilience during uncertain times. And it will be led today by our recreational therapist, Savannah Britt, which I know somebody knows Savannah. She already had a shout out. And a licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. Mark Bender. So the learning objectives for this presentation include strategies to manage emotional distress, how to stay well connected while feeling isolated, and tips for practicing positive self-care. So today's community partner representative is going to be Amy Smith from the Brain Injury Association of Virginia, and she's going to join us here in a few minutes. So in order to get started, I'd like to thank Savannah, Mark, and Amy again for their time today. And I'm going to turn things over to Savannah and Mark, who are going to start the education session of this program.
All right, I am going to see if I can share my screen. Is that possible to do? Well, thank you everybody for attending. And I know that doing it via Zoom is a little bit different, but we really appreciate everybody coming, and hopefully this is going to be helpful and beneficial for everybody. Before I do get started, if you cannot hear me or if I'm kind of talking too fast, which I sometimes have a tendency to do, please just kind of wave your hands or interrupt me. If you have questions, we'll definitely have time at the end for questions, but if you have a question or you need me to clarify anything while I'm giving my part of the presentation, then please just let me know. So I'm going to kind of give my part. I'll be referencing some things that Savannah is going to also address, and then she will pick up after I'm done. So let me just the title again is Enhancing Resilience During Uncertain Times. Obviously right now, the pandemic has been quite a challenging time, I think, for all of us. There have been a lot of, depending on what you've been keeping up with as far as politics, that's been quite challenging. But then also just we're talking about any of the challenges and stressors that we experience in our sort of day-to-day life. So one of the things that we want to really kind of focus on initially is this concept of resilience. And to start off, you can look at definitions of resilience, which basically include the capacity to quickly or recover quickly from difficulties, kind of a sense of toughness. Also, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, or elasticity. So that's how the definition defines, or the dictionary defines it. Stated in another way and more relevant for our purposes, resilience is the ability to bounce back from the stresses of life. It's not about avoiding the stress, but learning to thrive within the stress and building good coping skills that we can use to deal with stressful situations. I want to make sure I give credit and really plug. You'll see a web page at the bottom there for bouncebackproject.org. This is their definition, and I strongly encourage you to go to this website. It's a cooperative project that consists of healthcare providers, hospitals, insurance systems, as well as members of the community. And they have just a lot of really, really helpful free resources focusing on resilience and self-care. There's a daily or a mailing list that you can join where they'll send information out to you. And I took this definition from them. What I really like about the definition is that it focuses on resilience not as a way to eliminate our lives from stress, but to realize that stress is going to be part of our lives, and we can travel through life with stress accompanying us and work on developing skills to help deal with those stressful situations. So if you have ever had any interest in looking into the term resilience and what it is, it really does have kind of a long-standing research background. And there's a lot of different groups that have studied what it is, and then why some people seem to have more resilience than others when faced with the similar kind of situations, and kind of come up with ways to help develop this in all of us. And so again, kind of using or piggybacking off of the Bounce Back Project, they've kind of identified 5 pillars of self-awareness that are listed here, and that I'll go over individually to try to help kind of pave the way to work on developing our own resilience. So the first one is self-awareness. And self-awareness really has to do with it's an active way and an effortful way to kind of check in with ourselves, right? Taking some time throughout the day to look at a variety of things, such as how our mood is, how tired am I? Did I get a good night's sleep? What is my kind of energy level? Am I eating well? These are things that are going to allow us to identify some areas that we may need to put a little extra attention in. If we have a particular challenging activity or a task that's to be done later in the day, knowing where I am as far as my level of stress, my level of fatigue is going to help me to make alterations that I might need. So all of those kind of things are looking at sort of obstacles or potential challenges to my resilience, my emotional well-being. And the other thing is, as humans, we tend to be a little hardwired to focus on those things that might be kind of a little negative or a little challenging. So it's also very important for us to actively engage in identifying things that are going well for us. And one exercise that can be very helpful to do this is the 3 good things exercise. And this is something that's really helpful to do towards the end of the day, maybe prior to going to bed, and just asking yourself, what are 3 good things or 3 things that went well today? And also, what was my role in making them happen? If you're inclined to do this exercise, I would encourage you to somehow kind of either write it down in like a journal, if you're someone that uses a computer, document this, because you get to see kind of a list of things, and you may see sort of recurring experiences, and particularly identifying how you were contributing to improve or make these things go well can be very, very helpful. The next pillar here is self-care. And when we talk about self-care, we're in this respect, we are encouraging people to be self-focused and maybe a little selfish, because we really want to make sure that individuals are doing things to promote their physical well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, making sure that you're taking time to enjoy things that you enjoy, or to do things that you enjoy. One way to go about doing this is committing random acts of kindness. If you look, every year, always, I forget the organization, they do surveys and they ask people, what are 5 things that you do to make you happy? And inevitably, one of the top 3 is always going to be doing something nice for somebody else. Committing a random act of kindness has been shown to be the most powerful thing to result in a momentary increase in well-being, more than any other activity that's been tested. So trying to commit random acts of kindness can be a way to help yourself and obviously help other people. Self-care in exercise. Exercise, not only can it have a positive impact on your physical health and well-being, it also has research evidence to show that it can enhance cognitive functions and can also have a really big impact on your mood. Stress management and coming up with ways to manage your stress, engaging in hobbies, and these are some areas that Savannah is going to be talking about as her time comes up. The one other pillar of resilience is purpose. Kind of what's your why? What is your sense of purpose? What gives you meaning? This is something that, if you look at research in this area, a lot of individuals, when asked this question, have a really hard time coming up with my purpose, my kind of sense of, what makes things important, what do I find important, what makes meaning for me. But it's also been something that individuals who've identified that they do have kind of a sense of purpose, they have a sense of meaning, they report higher levels of emotional well-being, they report more positive mood. And so just as engaging in self-awareness is something that we have to take active steps to do, kind of identifying our purpose is another thing that really takes some active steps here too. So some questions to ask yourself to try to identify this are kind of, what are your values? What are the things in your life that you find to be very meaningful to you, that you find to be very important? What makes you smile? What makes you happy? What have you overcome, or what are you currently trying to overcome? And how did you go about doing that? Another thing is to try to find kind of what you're naturally sort of good at. And the thing is, when you come up with ways to, or come up with ideas about kind of what your purpose is, how much are your actions and behaviors sort of directed towards living that purpose? Relationships, a very big one, and as far as social relationships, probably the one that's been hardest hit during the pandemic. I know I personally have really had a big hit on social relationships and the impact that's had. We are social animals as humans. We really do tend to gravitate and get a lot from engagement with others. And so really trying to focus and spend time on being connected and staying connected with others, and doing so during this time in ways that are probably going to be different than what we're used to. We've been doing them, going to continue to have to do them. I just also want to put a plug out there for when we're able to kind of socialize in person, that we do so in a very safe way, following all the recommendations, and so that we can continue to enjoy each other's company for years to come. And then the fifth kind of pillar of resilience is this concept of mindfulness. This may be something that you've heard of. It kind of has its origins in Eastern religion, Eastern philosophies, and it's really become quite prevalent in more Western mental health practices, as well as making its way even into a lot of medicine practices. And mindfulness is essentially just a way of being present in the here and now, kind of present in the present moment. It's a way for us to just experience our day-to-day activities in sort of a non-judgmental manner, without any way of interpreting what's going on, but just kind of being aware of what's happening. It also helps to increase our awareness of our thoughts and our emotions. A lot of times, we can get really, really wrapped up in our thoughts, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about how the thoughts and how we think about things can have an impact on how we feel and our behaviors. But sometimes we kind of get so wrapped up in those that we feel that they're permanent, they're exactly who we are, they define us. And mindfulness is a way to sort of have a little bit of a distance with those and just kind of know that they come and go. So again, resilience, as I mentioned, is being able to kind of deal with stresses in life, cope with them effectively. Stress is something that is always going to be present. It's a natural part of life. And in fact, if we have an expectation that we're going to kind of remove all stress from our life, I think we're going to be very disappointed and even more stressed because we'll get stressed out by the fact that we can't get rid of the stress. So, periods of feeling down, feeling fearful, feeling upset are very, very normal. I do want to make a point, though, that there are times when the stress turns into distress, and it may have an impact on us that is really negatively impacting our well-being. It may be interfering with our ability to engage with others or do the things that we want to do. So in those times, it is important to be able to, again, checking in with yourself, getting that self-awareness there, to reach out for support from family or friends, maybe even to kind of seek out formal treatment services, mental health treatment, possibly, if recommended medication. But I just want to make sure that, folks are aware of that and keep that in mind. Emotional distress can also come about from how we think or the way we think about things. So all of our experiences, are filtered through our minds. And as humans, we all tend to fall into different thinking traps, or what some people call stinking thinking. And part of being self-aware is to try to identify whether or not some of the thoughts that I'm having about a situation may fall under some of these stinking thinking categories, because they tend to be types of thoughts that are associated with increasing distress, and they may not really reflect the reality of the situation. So let me just kind of go over some of them. Overgeneralization is when we take one negative situation and we apply it to everything. So I may wake up in the morning, I go outside, I've got a flat tire, and I say to myself, I've got a flat tire, my whole day is ruined. Now I'm going to be late for work. Now I'm going to, get in trouble for this. My whole day is shot. And when the reality of that is, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but this kind of fortune telling, I don't know what's going to happen. I need to look at that as one particular event, to address that, move on, and see how things go. Another way of thinking that can cause some distress for us is when we discount the positive. So discounting the positive is, and this is people who tend to be a little critical of themselves do this more often. So somebody kind of does something nice for me, or somebody tells me that I've done a good job, and I'm going to say, oh, I didn't have anything to do with that. It was just luck, or it was a fluke. People just felt, sorry for me. That's why they did something nice for me. I discount the fact that something, that something was positive and something was good. When the fact is, the person who told me I did a good job, hey, maybe I did do a good job. And, the person who wanted to do something nice for me did it because they did it out of the kindness of their heart. Mind reading and fortune telling happen all the time, and they particularly come up in social interactions. And with mind reading, we assume that we know what somebody else is thinking. So I walk by a colleague of mine in the hallway, I say hello, they don't say hello back. I immediately think, oh, they must hate me. What did I do? They don't like me. When in all actuality, they could have been distracted by their own thoughts. They could have been thinking about something else, didn't hear me. Fortune telling, kind of similar to overgeneralization, is this idea that I can predict the future somehow. If I had this flat tire in the morning, my whole day is going to be ruined. I always tell people too, though, that none of us really can predict the future. If any of us could, we would probably be well known. And so it's just not something that we can do. But we really find ourselves, or we can often find ourselves falling into that trap. Catastrophizing is just a way of taking it's kind of like overgeneralization. We take one situation and we kind of make a mountain out of a molehill. And sometimes this can happen, particularly when we're anxious about something, and that anxiety just starts to continue to fester and get worse and worse and worse. So we see I did a mediocre job on a particular task, and I turn it into, I'm a complete failure and I'll never be able to succeed at this. Okay, so in catching ourselves thinking this way, if we can identify whether our thoughts are falling under one of these particular stinking thinking categories, and then come up with an alternative way of looking at it. I made a mistake on this particular task, and I need to learn from that and figure out how to improve my performance kind of in the future. I talked about exercise a little earlier in terms of a way to manage emotional distress. Again, there was an interesting study out of Duke a number of years ago where they looked at individuals who were being treated for depression and didn't really respond to medication that well, but with a moderate physical exercise regime, they were able to report significantly higher mood states and overall sense of kind of well-being. Another way to address kind of emotional distress is by use of distraction, engaging in kind of a competing mood. So, I always, not that I'm trying to turn people into couch potatoes, but sometimes popping a comedy on TV, reading a funny a story, getting a joke book, things along those lines to kind of just shift the experience. And then establishing a daily routine can be very, very helpful in terms of particularly when we may have limited options as far as getting out, and again during the situation that we're dealing with the pandemic now, but establishing a daily routine that it allows some predictability, it allows some to some degree kind of control in our lives, and can really be a big help in terms of managing distress. Finally, I have some kind of pointers on here as far as communication. I don't know if you guys identify with this, but I know in my household, being together as much as we are, sometimes we get on each other's nerves. So when and if that happens, and just to kind of enhance kind of interpersonal communication, just some of the things to focus on would be, I talk about being a mirror, not a sponge, meaning, if we're starting to get kind of a little snippy with a friend or a loved one, not to just accept and absorb all of the negativity, but giving them feedback. When you talk to me that way, it upsets me, it hurts my feelings. I would appreciate it if we could have a different conversation. It's also very common if we're starting to have a little bit of an interaction that's becoming frustrating and someone's getting angry. If someone comes at you with a very high level of emotion and they may be kind of wanting to sort of yell at you, it's natural to respond with that same intensity there. So kind of being aware of that and trying to respond in a very business-like tone, short, simple phrases to prevent the escalation may be helpful to remove yourself, calm down, and approach this at a different time. I always think it's really helpful, particularly if you're giving feedback to somebody about something you're not necessarily pleased with, to make sure you're focusing on the behavior and not their personality. It's much easier to change behavior than it is personality. So someone's leaving dishes in the sink. It frustrates me when you leave dishes in the sink versus you're lazy, you're always leaving them in there. And then just to enhance our relationships, really trying to have a time that you set aside to have conversations with friends, to have conversations with partners, family, just to give that positive experience from which you can build upon. So that's it for my part. I'll turn it over now to Savannah.
So I wanted to take some time to discuss some of our community resources, and not only in Virginia, but just kind of as a whole that can help enhance our resilience. So firstly, we have our Brain Injury Association of Virginia, BIAV. I know Amy will be speaking about this in a little bit, but still wanted to touch base on this. So they are the primary resource of information and personal support for thousands of individuals, families, and professionals living in Virginia whose lives have been impacted by a brain injury. Something that they have that's pretty neat is a resource directory on their website where survivors and caregivers can access a list of different resources that are available in your area, including support groups, community programs, vocational services, legal services, counseling services. And we will discuss a little bit more in a future slide about some support groups that they offer as well. And I also wanted to mention for our folks that might be from surrounding states outside of Virginia, there's also the Brain Injury Association of America, where they can connect you with your local Brain Injury Association and point you into the direction of other resources that are available in your area. And they have a hotline that you can call and discuss that with them so they can help you in the future with connecting with resources that are in your area. CBIS, or Community Brain Injury Services, they provide services to survivors of brain injury that are designed to help survivors more fully recover from injury and become more fully integrated into the larger community. Their services help survivors live safely and independently in the community by working with individuals to relearn and redefine their work skills and rebuild self-esteem. And by offering appropriate services and resources to meet their needs. And currently they service the Richmond area and the Hampton Roads area as well. Another this is more of a support group that we have here in Richmond, the RVA Aphasia group. They meet for people with aphasia. The goal of their community group is to help people with aphasia to communicate, locate information, and find interesting things to do together. What's pretty neat is right now they're offering their support group virtually, which is pretty neat. So more folks should be able to join that right now. And they meet every second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. And then lastly, we wanted to discuss DARS, which is Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. They are our official state-sanctioned service provider for brain injury. They have lots of different divisions within that service to help folks in our state. The Division of Rehabilitative Services offers vocational rehab to assist people with disabilities to prepare for, secure, retain, or regain employment. They can also help in finding appropriate assistive technology that may help individuals live and work more independently. They also work hand in hand with some community partners and businesses to assist individuals with disabilities in achieving their goals of employment. Some of the other programs that they offer, they have a community living division. They have the Adult Protective Services Division, the Office of the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman, and Disability Determination Services. So they have a lot of things to offer. And Mark, if you could go to the next slide, please. So a big thing right now is ways to connect. So there are lots of ways that we can connect with others and support each other. And one of the best things we can do for our health and well-being is to engage with other folks, especially during times of COVID. And so one of the ways that we can connect with others and have that sense of purpose might be volunteering in your local community. There's this really neat website called allforgood.org. They provide an opportunity where you can search for, connect with, or create volunteer opportunities in your area. I think that's a pretty neat resource that you all can tap into if you're looking to get involved in the community. One of Virginia Navigator's websites called Disability Navigator also has resources on not only volunteer opportunities, but also a database for other disability resources throughout the state. So that might be something worth checking into. Our friendship line, so that you can see the toll-free number there. The friendship line is an accredited crisis line for people in the U.S. over the age of 60 or adults living with a disability. It serves as both a crisis intervention line and also accepts non-emergency support calls. It provides emotional support, well-being checks, grief support, and referrals for isolated individuals. It's really a good resource to use during times of COVID. They also offer outreach calls to eligible callers. And so I think that would be a great thing to look into if you're feeling isolated or lonely or depressed. It'd be good to have someone you can talk to about how you're feeling. And so on kind of going along with that, BIAV has 2 different virtual support groups that they are currently doing. One is a newer one. It's a caregiver virtual meeting. They meet monthly, the first Wednesday at noon. And so I think that's a good one to look into, to have other folks to chat with about that are going through the same things you are. And then they also have just another online virtual support group for people living with brain injury, their family, their friends, or others who care for and or about them. And they meet monthly as well, every 3rd Monday of the month at 6:30. And so I think both of those would be wonderful to tap into if you haven't already. Another thing that BIAV does is they have a newsletter. If you're a member of BIAV, that offer lots of great educational resources and just keep you up to date on their happenings within their association. And then just a plug for technology, use technology to our advantage to connect with your family and your friends. Use Facebook Messenger or FaceTime, Google Meet, Google Duo, Zoom, any of those video chat platforms can really be great to tap into, to kind of be with family, but also be from afar during times of COVID. So I think that's a neat resource that we can tap into as well. If you want to go to the next slide. So I just wanted to talk about some tips and tricks for helping to relieve stress. So doing something that you enjoy every day. I think it's important to try to keep up your involvement in activities and hobbies that you enjoy, or trying something new. That can also be exciting as well. Even if you can only do something fun for a short period of time, it will help relieve stress and offer you time to focus on something positive. Healthy lifestyle choices. I think this is really important. Some of these things Mark touched on earlier. Exercise helps to reduce stress and prevents the effects of stress. Even going for a walk or spending time outside can really help reduce stress. Eating a healthy diet if you can, that's a big one. Avoiding alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. Getting enough sleep. I think that's a really important piece to a healthy lifestyle, is making sure we get enough sleep during the night. And then also doing some deep breathing exercises if you feel yourself getting overwhelmed or stressed, to just take a few moments to take a couple of deep breaths and kind of recharge and revitalize your thoughts. I think that could be a good strategy to use if needed. Narrow down your to-do list. So if it's too much, you can distinguish between the shoulds and the musts of your list, and give yourself attainable goals for the day. You don't want to overload yourself when there are things that could wait. Allow for respite time. This is more for our caregivers. It's important to take time for yourself, even if it's for a short time. Reading a chapter in a book that you've started reading, or listening to calming and relaxing music, catching up on social media or a show that you've started watching, video chatting a family member or a friend like we talked about earlier. Really any activity that can allow for you to get that rest and recharge time, even if it's just for a little bit. Lighting a candle with a calming scent, or utilizing essential oil diffusers that have calming agents like lavender or eucalyptus or rose when you're feeling stressed can help as well. And then keeping your sense of humor. So the act of laughing can help the body fight stress. There's a really cool app that you can find on iPhone and on the Google Play Store, I believe. It's called Laugh Your App Off. I had to make sure I reiterated what that says. That you can access. They can send you like a daily funny joke, and you can also read through hundreds of jokes on within the app as well. I think that's a pretty neat resource, just to give you a kind of funny, enjoying moment during your day. And if technology isn't your preference, there's lots of reading materials out there that focus on humor, and podcasts are also something that you could tap into. There's lots of podcasts focused on humor, but there's also podcasts that could be good for uplifting and positivity based talks as well. And then game nights. This is a little plug for recreation therapy, but learning a new game together or playing a game that you all are familiar with, something you can do together as a family or with your friends, just to enjoy each other's company while also engaging in meaningful leisure, can really make a difference. And actually, folks are using some of those video chat platforms to do some virtual game nights to be with your family or with your friends, even from afar, which I think is pretty neat as well. So those are just some tips and tricks to keep in mind for relieving stress and to help enhance your resilience.
So I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions and for the presentation about BIAV specifically. So why don't we do that, and then we can come back to the mindfulness exercise at the end. That way we give you guys enough opportunity to get all of your questions answered.
So thank you both so much for the information. And I'd like to take a few minutes here to introduce Amy Smith. Amy is from BIAV, and she's the outreach coordinator. Is that the correct title for you?
Outreach specialist, yeah.
Yes. So some of you may have connected with Amy when you were in Sheltering Arms Institute or shortly after, but I'm going to let Amy just introduce herself and talk a little bit about the great things that BIAV does for our patients and our families. Thank you, Amy.
All right, yes. So thanks for that introduction. My name's Amy, Outreach Specialist at BIAV, or Brain Injury Association of Virginia. And I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit about who our organization is and what we do. So Savannah already shared a couple of things about what we do, but I'm going to add a few extras. We are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to advance education, awareness, support, treatment, and research to improve the quality of life for people affected by brain injury. And we're committed to connecting you to the supports and programs and services that you need. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what some of these supports and services look like. And one thing that may be of most interest to you is that we operate an information and referral helpline. It offers assistance customized to your need, and you can talk to one of our experts here as part of your recovery, and that can help you discover what you don't know right now and what you may need to know in the future. So we can arrange for you to have a free one-on-one consultation with our staff to map a course for what comes next for you. And we can do this over the phone, email, through our chat function on our website, or also through a virtual meeting. And the number for that hotline, if you want to write that down, it's 1-800-444-6443. And you can also contact us through our website. The link was on a previous slide in the presentation, but it's just biav.net. And right at the top, there's a link that says contact us. And if you click on that, it gives a list of all the different ways they can get in contact with us. So just a few other things that we do. We host education and training events through conferences, webinars, and workshops. And we also participate in public awareness and brain injury prevention activities. And we're hosting virtual support groups, as Savannah said. And if you would like to get connected with those, you can go to our website and click on the link that says get to the support groups, and it gives you contact information for the people who run those support groups, and you can reach out to them and they will help you join. And so we also lead advocacy efforts to expand the system of care and help people with brain injury and their family and caregivers protect their rights and secure services. We also hold a camp called Camp Bruce McCoy. It's named in honor of a former camper, and it's a week-long recreation and respite program for adult survivors of brain injury and then also their caregivers. Sorry about the phone ringing. So overall, we provide personalized and timely assistance to specifically address the issues you are dealing with right now. And no matter where you are in your journey with brain injury, we're available for you to reach out to us as your needs arise.
Thank you very much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions for Savannah or Mark or Amy?
You want to know whether or not you're progressing in terms of your continued rehab. My take on that is it kind of depends. So every single individual's progression and recovery is different, not only from the standpoint of what types of improvements in functioning they achieve, but also what are the things that you would like to do? What are the areas you want to become involved with and engaged in? So I think it's going to depend on what you set as kind of your particular goals and your particular areas that you want to be able to be involved in. And then kind of determine whether or not, you know, how far away you are, whether or not you're there, and then from there be able to possibly, you know, seek out further kind of assistance or intervention to be able to assist you in continuing further along those paths. So I wanted to invite everybody just to participate in kind of a mindfulness exercise. So I talked about mindfulness earlier, and basically mindfulness is a way of being present in the here and now. If you think about distress, right, if you're nervous or worried about something, it's often about things that haven't happened yet, so we're focused on the future. And if we're sad or upset about things, it's often about things that have happened in the past. Being in the present can allow us to separate ourselves from those 2 points. And it also allows us to kind of be more aware of what's going on and be more kind of objective about that. A lot of people think mindfulness is, the purpose of it is to be relaxed. And while that is an outcome that often occurs, it's not necessarily the goal, but if it happens, that's fantastic. So what I was hoping to do is just kind of lead people through an exercise here. If you want to participate, please feel free to do so. And essentially just kind of allow yourself to get comfortable where you are sitting. And sometimes people find it more helpful to close your eyes. If that works for you, that's fantastic. I'd invite you to go ahead and do so, but you don't need to if you don't want to. And while you're sitting there, just allow yourself to become kind of present in the present moment here. And just kind of bring your attention to your breathing. There's no need to change your breathing. Just allow yourself to notice your breath coming in. And as it leaves your body, notice any changes in your body that occur. And just take a few moments. Just focus on your breathing. There may be distractions such as noise in the background. If that happens, just acknowledge that it's present and then just bring your attention back to your breathing. And as you continue to breathe, I would invite you to just imagine yourself sitting by a stream. It's a place that is very pleasant for you. The temperature is just what it needs to be for you. And just take a few moments to see the stream, see the surroundings, and imagine that there are trees that line this stream. And from the trees, leaves have fallen into the stream. And just notice these leaves as they kind of pass by in front of you, working their way down the stream. And as you're doing this, there may be thoughts that pop into your mind. And anytime you notice a thought come into your mind, just acknowledge that it's present. And imagine taking that thought and placing it on one of the leaves that are flowing in front of you. And just watch that leaf with the thought travel down the stream. It may go to one side or the other. It may kind of circle around a little whirlpool. But eventually the thought just drifts slowly further down the stream and out of sight. Again, just continue to notice leaves as they flow by. And anytime you have a thought that pops into your mind, regardless of what it is, just acknowledge that it's present and place that thought on the leaf, noticing how it can now drift away. And as it drifts away, the intensity of the thought, belief in it, also kind of dissipates. So I invite you just to take a few more moments, being present, noticing your breathing, and seeing leaves flow past, placing any thoughts you might have that come to mind on the leaves, allowing them to just flow downstream. And now, in a few moments, just allow yourself to become more aware of your surroundings. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them. Aware of where you're sitting, the room you're in, and come back to full awareness of your environment, ready to meet the day in a mindful way. I would encourage you, there are a number of resources online for mindfulness exercises. This is a skill. The more you practice, the better you become, or I should say, the more benefit that you'll receive from it. So I would encourage you to look further into that. And I appreciate your willingness to participate in this exercise.
Thank you so much. These community transition events are going to be happening quarterly. So we'll have our next event in March with the topic to be announced. But I do have everybody's emails, so I will be able to send that out to you, send the link to you so you know all about when the next event will be. And hopefully sometime in the near future, we can gather together in our big conference room here and really spend some quality time, supporting one another and continuing to educate ourselves as we go through this journey of healing and recovery. So thank you all so much, and I appreciate everyone's time.